Nope.
Who?
Ron's.
Oh.
Did you get?
Yeah, I had a little.
Yeah, what happened there? You had that the other day when we were talking.
I didn't think it noticed. Nah, it's a little surgical procedure. Not a big deal. It's handled.
Cool.
So how are we doing here? Yeah.
What do we got? We got 3 people, 4 people. We got 3 people. Okay, we need 2 more.
We're still. This is good. This is the. If any of you have questions that you don't want to ask for the rest of the people around, you can ask now. This is what you get for being
early.
Prompt.
Yes.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay. There's a guy who's taken off.
Okay. When you go over some of these construction techniques and whatnot, it'd be really helpful if you if you had an idea of relative costs and whatnot. That would be really helpful.
Great.
Well, we can give you an idea.
Yeah. No, I know, and I know I've dealt with construction people enough to know that there's a huge variation in price.
I mean, yeah. Also, depend. Because you understand, it depends on location. It also depends on availability.
Yep.
It depends on the type of the knowledge base for the people in the area, that kind of thing.
It's amazing. Here's an example, Ron. I am partial to a foundation treatment made by the company Tremco, which makes a whole lot of sealants and building parts throughout the building. Sealants, gaskets, one thing and another. But they also make a draining foundation insulation that insulates your foundation, but also protects it against horizontal water flows. And when it comes up above the surface, they have a very handsome treatment called Horizon, which takes the insulation right up to the sill plates, and it has a very rugged final treatment, sort of I don't know what it is. It's not an epoxy, but it's some sort of a polymer that they apply to this screed that protects the insulation, but you can have at it with a lawnmower or something and it won't break, which is not something you can say about stucco. And so I'm building currently on Cape Cod quite a bit. And so I've just called up the local, Tremco is huge. This company is a national company. It's probably an international company. Do they have it in Canada, Gio? They have Tremco products?
Yep.
Yeah. So massive company. So I thought, well, great. So I'll just call up and find out who the installer is that can do this. It's just a standard thing. There's nobody on the Cape. The closest guy was in New Hampshire.
Wow.
And he came down and he said, yeah, it'll cost you this much. And I said, that's way too much. He said, yeah, well, I'm coming from New Hampshire. I said, there's not somebody closer by? And he says, no, there's not. Well, it turns out there is somebody closer by who's not licensed with Tremco, but he sells and installs the system. His price is half the price. So
yeah, half the price.
When Gio says it's the local knowledge base, this is probably one of the hardest lessons I had to learn as a young builder was just because you read about a cool product in the Journal of Light Construction or Fine Home Building doesn't mean you should run out and use it, because if there's nobody in your area who can service it, support it, install it, warranty it, you could have the state-of-the-art boiler that is only going to last till its first breakdown, and then it's an anchor.
Yeah.
So it's a hard lesson to learn. But by the way, those are some good books for anybody who's getting into this. Italy, but welcome. And also Grace. Fine Home Building, you probably have all heard of. The Journal of Light Construction is a little more professional. And also the Geo, is it the Green Advisor that I think it's the Green Advisor, which is, that's a website. And we will.
Yeah.
It is the Green Advisor, right? Or the Green Building Advisor. Let me look it up.
Yeah, it's the Green Advisor. There's Green Building, and then there's the Green Advisor. They're two separate, they might be linked, but I think they're two separate ones.
All right. We'll find out.
What was the second one? The Journal of what?
Right now. Journal of Light Construction. That's a cool one.
Yeah, that's the thing. Green Building
I love
Advisor.
that one. I subscribe.
Is
Building
somebody
Advisor,
calling?
that's it. Yeah. Somebody calling, playing music?
Somebody's calling it.
Life
Right.
construction, like LIFE.
Light.
Light.
Oh, light. Okay.
Light. Light. Light.
All right.
Cool.
John, what was that system you were describing?
So,
That is you mean the one just now using as an example?
Yeah.
It's a foundation insulation, and I bet you Gio's going to get into this when he talks about different ways to think about foundations. But in a traditional poured-in-place frost wall type of foundation, ideally you want to put the insulation on the outside so that the mass of the concrete is on the inside. But doing that means you also have to worry about any kind of water that might impinge on your foundation, lateral water, say if you're building on a slope, which we always are in Vermont. And so the kind of insulation that I like to use is it has a striation to it or a direction, and if water hits it, it immediately goes down to the foundation drain. And the name of it is, it's a part of a system by the Tremco company, Tremco. And the part that's underground they call
Tough and dry.
Tough and dry. And then the part above ground is called
Tough and dry.
And they actually have a additional products that go all the way up to the roof, but I don't advise them. They'll wrap your whole house in rubber if you let them.
How do you insulate? I don't know. Maybe you'll get into it later. But how do you waterproof the base, the basement area?
How do you insulate it?
Waterproof it and insulate. Yeah, but both.
Okay. Well,
To prevent hydrostatic water pressure coming up.
Well, it's sort of site by site. You know, different sites have different water conditions. So, and you know, for instance, in a textbook situation, you would dig your hole, you put your footing down, and then you have a perimeter drain or a footing drain that goes all around it. Are other people getting the bad transmission I'm getting? Yeah. Boy, it was so great when Gio and I were here all by ourselves. We could really hear each other. Let me try something.
Don't say that.
I'm going to start my video and see some.
Let's all.
Is this any better?
Let's all mute except John.
No. Is everybody else on mute? Carol.
Yeah.
Can you
So
mute your,
Should it be mute?
there we go. So is this better? Yeah. See, this is what happens. What happens is my voice is not better? It is better. That's better. Okay. All right. So where were we? You put down the footing, the base of the foundation, then you put the perimeter drain, called a footing drain sometime, and then you cover that with stone, and you build on top of that footing, you build your foundation walls. But now you have a crack right there between the footing and the wall. So you have a bunch of things you have to waterproof against. You have water coming up from just a rising water table. You have water coming down from rain and drip line off your roof that comes down and up against and wants to come down and find that crack and come into your basement. And then you have lateral hydrostatic pressure. Say there's what's called a perched water table. When it rains, the water percolates down and then hits a layer of clay and goes sideways up against your house maybe. Or if you're on a hill, it can happen that way. So as far as the strictly just the waterproofing, traditionally what they would do is they'd have a guy come in, it's a subcontract, and spray the foundation with tar. It's really good. Even before that, we used to paint the tar on, but that's terrible because you can never get it into all the little holes. The spray guy comes, he heats up the tar, he sprays it on there. It's probably an environmental disaster, but it's really good. And it seals all the cracks, all the holes, and keeps, you have to remember that concrete is porous like a sponge. So it seals it that way. And it also, because it's hot, it runs down and really seals that crack between the footing and the actual the foundation wall, stem wall. That's the basic way to do it. Then over the years, as energy has become more important, energy sensitive builders started putting rigid insulation on top of that. And then what they found was that the rigid insulation still had problems. When you backfill it, you could crush it or displace it. And also, nobody liked seeing rigid insulation sticking out of the ground once you got to that last 8 inches to a foot of concrete above the ground. So then the next thing, sort of generation of builders would put lath on the exposed rigid foam and stucco it. And if you do that properly and you know what you're doing with stucco, that can be a very good look. But it's a little bit delicate because if you hit it with a lawnmower or something like that, it'll crack. But it's fixable. You can maintain it pretty well. But it was more often than not an eyesore. It was more often than not installed properly. So that's where Tremco came along and said, you know what? We should engineer a proper system here. We should engineer an integrated system that includes the damp proofing, the waterproofing, the draining insulation, and have it all be one system that resolves. And that's what they did.
And what are the environmental credentials to their system?
I give it a solid C+.
Okay.
Here's the reason is the pros are that by keeping your foundation dry and well insulated, you're using less energy and you're not creating a situation in the basement that would promote mold and other health hazards. So that's good. And it does that as well as pretty much any product can. The downside is that it still uses petroleum products. On the good side, the actual insulation is fiberglass, which is basically silica or silicon dioxide. That's what it's made of. That's what glass is made of. So that's a pretty sustainable reuse and reusable material. So that's good. There's also additional products that are toxic. The polymer that goes on over the insulation above grade is probably not something I would promote if I could find a better product. But
do all of these systems, so these various footings and foundation walls, you still need to, you have to have a base floor, right? Like a slab that cuts across. Do you use the same kind of spray tar or system to insulate and waterproof that?
No, that's a good question. So you put down just for sequence, you put down the footing, then you put the stem walls up, you get them all waterproofed and stuff. You can put the slab in next, or you can wait quite a while, but usually it goes in quite soon after that. And you put down 2 inches of rigid foam. First you put down sand so it's level and you get it right, because then you put the foam on that. You can't just put the foam down on the ground, or when the workers go to walk on it, they'll break it. So you level everything off with sand, and then you put down the foam. Then you put down a layer of 6 mil poly, or 2 layers, and then they pour the concrete over that. And and then they're going to get a really nice steel finish. I think a lot of this stuff is going to be clear. Gio, you're going to just take them right through foundations, right? Do you want to start with that, or do you want to start with the homework? You're gonna, Gio, that was the question to you.
Oh, you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking. Okay, let's start with the homework first. Let's start with the homework. Well, we could go either way, but I mean, let's start with the homework first, because there were some people that didn't get much done last week, and so we'd like to see what they have. And let's get that going, and then as we go forward, we'll answer questions as we go near the end of the class on the reading. Okay, so let's start from my left, and we'll start with Carol. She's on my left. Actually, she's on my right, but my left it doesn't matter. Carol, you're first. Well, show me what you have. What do you have? Did you show us your talisman? And
No, I did not.
and you should unmute yourself, because
I did.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Show us what you have. Oh, you did.
Hear me, right?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So for my talisman,
Yes.
I have to say, I thought at the beginning that was a silly assignment, but I think it's really great. I mean, because I really started thinking about it. It was great. I mean, I hadn't really thought about what it means. I was just involved in the design and the floor plan, but so I really found out this house means a whole bunch to me. So it was great. But so I'm retired. My husband's 70. He's still working. So this is our last house. And I want it to be a welcoming, quiet, peaceful place, connected to nature. I've always liked houses where we can actually see to the outside and have something nice to look at. And plus, I'm an introvert. I love to read. So to me, one thing that represents quiet, comfortable, welcoming home is like a window seat looking out on nature. Can come, curl up with a good book. So I thought, well, maybe a window seat is my talisman. And then I realized also, in addition to just the two of us, I like it to be welcoming for our family. We have grown kids. We have grandchildren now. This is great. So I narrowed down my talisman from the window seat to a book, because I really do enjoy reading, and that makes me think of the window seat and nature. And then I ended up picking a children's book, because that represents family to me, children. So, and oddly enough, I collect illustrated children's books. That we have a big giant library in my house. I mean, in this new house I will build. So so here's my talisman. It's the Wizard of Oz, but, which I really enjoyed reading to my kids. And maybe I'll get to read it to my grandkids. So that's my talisman. Okay, then I did, this is my first bubble thing. I don't know if you can see that. I just drew bubbles, and then I went on to SketchUp, and I drew a bunch of boxes, which I cut out, and I drew a bunch of boxes to scale to represent the rooms, and I cut it out and moved it around on a piece of paper. And then once I figured out what I wanted, then I actually put it in SketchUp. Hold on, let me see if I could. So can you see that? Oh, I have to do share screen. How do I do share screen?
Yeah, share screen. There's a little green thing right in the middle. It says share screen.
A little green thing in the
it?
middle. Should I get rid of this?
In the middle of the screen, at the bottom.
Oh, I see. Okay.
If you move your cursor to the bottom of the screen.
Share screen.
Okay. You hit that.
Now I'll go back to. Now is it there?
There you go.
Okay. So so the squares I moved around on a piece of paper, then I put them into SketchUp. Right.
Wow.
So it looks kind of exotic.
Perfect.
That was, and then now I have a survey, and it's somewhere on a thumb drive, which I haven't found yet. So I don't have that in the program yet, but I'm sure I'm going to find it at some point. Or I'll have to have him redo it. But I did put labels. I don't have the survey, but it's like 25 feet from the road. The views to the south. One neighbor's like this far away. Probably the garage has to go there. The other lot line is right there. And then I also have labels. Ta-da!
Oh, cool.
So yeah, the SketchUp course is very helpful that I took. So that was my bubble thing. Then I then went on to put it into modules. Now I think I'm going to do panelized panels just because I think it's more flexible. But I thought it was a good exercise to try the modules. So at first, on my piece of paper, I just took each of those little blocks and I just piled them into a module. Hold on, which well, you'll see. Let's see. So it was like blocks or ticker toys. I just lined them up in the modules. But that's not really what modular building is. That would be a very expensive way to do it, right? Because they're not connected to each other. So I didn't realize that until I put them all inside these big trailers or whatever they are. Realized they're just a bunch of blocks you're gonna have to attach together. So then I did. This was a lot of my work, and then I did 15-foot. Can you see the little guideline?
Yep.
So, and then this is, so the longest dimension is almost 48 feet. So these are 15 by 50 modules. And then I actually tried to get the floor plan to fit, and I did have to do a lot of adjusting. It took a lot of time, but it was very useful. So I had to turn this way, and this is just a quarter. These little blank areas, that's just a quarter. So I also had to then now invent quarters, because with the bubble plan, you just have spaces. But if you're actually going to put it in a module, you have to have it.
Right.
This is not done, but anyway, it's preliminary. And I can't, I assume that Porches and Decks are built.
I have to admit, you did.
Right. Porches and Decks.
Right. I mean, they can and they can't. I mean, sure.
Yeah. And I did have to
split.
This is cool.
So your porches.
That's just part of the floor plan. I could make it disappear probably. Yeah, it's not actually in the.
Oh, that's not actually. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So your covered porch is not round.
I just.
That's the view.
Okay. Yeah. The view is this way. There's a little pond down there. So we're on a slope, and there's a pond down there.
Is that an infinity dining table at the end?
So this is my giant library, but it's also the formal dining room.
No, north of the kitchen.
Double duty.
No,
it's informal dining, like a little breakfast nook, and there'll be a table there. And then this is like the reading nook. It's kind of symmetrical. You can throw an extra table there when we have a lot of people, I guess. And then I put in this quarter here for privacy. So in other words, that's a wall there, and then you kind of go back here. There's an entry to the guest bath, guest studio. This is a stairway elevator because there's going to be a lower level. You come in on the first level is the top level, and then since it goes downhill, then the stairs will go down, not up. But my husband and I will just live on this level. The bottom level will just be when people visit. So for heating and cooling, it'll just be like one floor. Yeah, I have not done any floor plan for the lower stuff because it's kind of really way less important. Also, I have to, yeah.
Can I ask this, Carol? Is it's a walkout down? In other words, it's on a slope, so towards the pond.
Slope, right? So this would be a deck porch. It's going to be elevated, and then the lower level will have a walkout.
Very good.
Yeah. My husband's a wine collector, so the idea is on the lower level to build the wine cellar to the hillside for installation.
I think Gio and I might have to do a site visit once you get the wine cellar built.
Okay. Oh, you'll be definitely welcome.
Yeah, right. That's true. Definitely. That's required. No, this is cool, Carol. This is amazing. You took us right through your whole process. This is great.
Well, once I got into it, it was hard to stop. and taking that SketchUp course, I'm sure Grace will attest, was really, really helpful. Because when I did this 5 or 6 years ago, I was just so bogged down in just the mechanics of it. But, yeah.
Oh, great.
So. Yeah. Oh, and although actually 5 or 6 years ago, SketchUp did Google Earth. Now they don't have Google Earth anymore, and I have not. But I was, my old Google Earth thing loaded into the new one. I'll show it to you. I put my thing in there. Oh yes, okay. There we go.
But you can still get your
survey. But there's so I just stuck that in there. We have one neighbor already. These people are building over here. There's the road, and there's the pond.
I love this. This is great.
So this is so fun. So with SketchUp,
nice.
You can. I just love this. So much fun. So the Google Earth thing kind of has like a flat plane, and then that's actually the contour. So
right.
I need to get the survey in there, and it'll be really helpful to have all that delineated. But I'm not sure how I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I just played with it, but
that's pretty cool.
And then I turned around so you can see it from the road. Because this is an old one. This model is not the one that's
right.
It's my very first original bubble diagram. Yeah, I had to narrow all this down, move the bathroom to make it modular. But yeah.
You know what? I just have to, not to interrupt, Carol, but I have to mention as a teacher here, this is one of those opportunities for the teacher to say, class, wasn't that an interesting demonstration of the exact right process? Not to make an example of you, Carol, but that's about as good as it gets. You do your talisman, then you do your bubble diagrams, then you move your bubble diagrams around a little bit to find out what the best adjacencies are. Then you jam them into modules in your case. Not that that is a necessary step, but it is if you're going to use modules. Just to see how many modules you were going to use. Then you, using that grid, you started to actually lay out a floor plan in a very bubble diagram level of roughness. And then before you got into where the stove would go or the refrigerator would go, the whole thing appears on the site. So now you're in the ideal situation where you can start looking and aligning vistas, external vistas. It's very natural for people to say, oh, well, there's the view out there, so these windows all face the view. But how about that road to the north there, that little road just opposite you? And is that maybe that's just a driveway? This one right up here? No, right directly? Yeah, there.
Driveways. Those are driveways.
Driveways. Okay, so cars will be coming out of there at night with their headlights on. Are there any views across the pond that you might want to make sure you lined up with in a more particular way?
Well, luckily, across the pond is undeveloped. There's just a hillside with some scrubby trees and stuff. So it's very kind of private, even though it's not in the middle of Austin, but it's in a residential neighborhood. So this place was what they call a wet weather creek. And years ago, they put a little berm and a little tiny dam so it would fill up. And then the golf course, there's a golf course in the community that pumps, I think these are the lines, which are now buried, but they pump water. Well, they still pump water out of here.
That's a pipe, that line that your cursor's going on?
It's like a big giant plastic tube, maybe like 6-inch diameter, 4-inch diameter.
Wow.
Yeah. At one point, 2008, we had a really bad drought. This was just dry. It's just gone.
Wow.
Yeah. So apparently occasionally disappears.
Well, the other thing, even though they're not, there's not a cathedral or a lone peak or something to line up with, it's a nice site, and one of the things I would just suggest you think about is the plant life on any piece of land anywhere very much responds to the cycles of the seasons and where the sun comes and goes. So when a building responds to the location of the sun and the other celestial bodies, it will automatically coordinate with the plant life and many other aspects of the site. So I'll just throw that out there because you're right at the point in your process now where you can take this rudimentary kind of model, very rough, but still you know where windows are likely to be and where vistas are likely to be, and you can move it around or shift it around to maximize relationships with the sun, but also the moon, the plants, and it's not too early to be thinking about, well, if I was going to have a little garden or an orchard or a sitting area or whatever, even, the Victorians would build whole follies just so they could look out their window and see something in the middling distance. So you're right at that very fun, wonderful phase in the design process. So it's great. Good work. Very good.
When you were talking about the foundations and the ceiling, because of the slope, we're definitely interested in protecting from water from below. But the neighbors also tell me this street here, there's a curve and you can't see the contour, but apparently, but there's a torrential downpour, the water goes just like that.
So that's good to know.
We definitely have to take that into account as far as the drainage system and.
Right. Good.
And I looked up some modules, but I have not contacted anyone. I really thought I should have the modules where I got them to before I contacted somebody, but so I haven't contacted any people.
Yeah, that brings up a good point that
okay, good.
when you do contact these factories, you could contact them with this much or even less, but they will, irrespective, they will try to guide you towards something that's easy for them to build. So they say, your design looks a lot like design 704B here in our catalog. Why don't you just build this? So, you should look at it, but I'm just saying, be aware.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm done.
That was great. That was really
Okay, good. All right. That was well done. That was well done. Nice. All right.
You have to
next person on my screen. Sorry, what?
Well, Carol's going to have to stop sharing. Oh, she did.
John, did you say something? Okay.
Okay. Yeah. There it is.
Okay. Who's next? Andalib, what do you have to show us?
Unfortunately, I have very little to show. I've been doing some sketches of bubble diagrams on paper, trying out different things, but I haven't put it onto SketchUp to be able to manipulate it and play around with it yet. Having said that, I started building the structure of the house, which is sort of getting ahead a little bit. I need to do the layout first. So I'm not ready to share yet. The other thing that's going on in my head is I'm playing around with different objectives, and perhaps I need to narrow down one. On the one hand, I'm looking at my existing structure and seeing how I can build out on it. So that's what I've started drawing in SketchUp. But I think I'm also thinking of, if I were to do it ground up, what it would be like. What would I like my ideal house to look like? And I'm not ready. I'm not sure which option would be financially more feasible. So I'm going to probably do both. But right now I'm not at that stage where I can, share yet.
Okay. But have you done any bubble diagrams?
Yeah, I mean, so
Have you started with the bubble diagram at all?
yeah, so so like I said, I've done a few things. I probably won't be able to read it. I have a bubble diagram of what my layout's going to look like, but again, I need to translate it into SketchUp to be able to share it properly. And I also started, I've started also playing around with on paper again what the interior. Let me show you. What the interior layouts would be like. So, I mean, again, I've started drawing different layouts, but I sort of need to play around with it in SketchUp, and I haven't done that yet. So again, it's not in a format that's easy to share at the moment, which is why I need to put it onto SketchUp. And what I have done on SketchUp is,
and your site.
So I started putting. I don't know if you can see. This is the kind of the structure of my house right now. I have a ranch. I'm looking to expand one side and then add another layer. Add another floor on one part of the house. Put the bedrooms upstairs and then create open spaces and expand the kitchen and sunroom on the right side. But again, this is just the shell of the house. And on this basis, I was doing little drawings on what the layouts would look like. So it's not really well structured at the moment.
So can I just suggest that there's you can see that you're a creative person. You're loving this process. You could easily burn through the whole class playing around with this on SketchUp. So, and I encourage you to enjoy yourself with that. But do be aware that there is a temptation to get the design so you're really excited about it, and then you drift behind the rest of the curriculum. So try to catch up. That, I think you're closer than you think. You've got massing that you'd like to inhabit with your layout, and you've got a bunch of layouts that you aren't yet happy with. You don't know if they work. As soon as you get something even remotely close, you should just lock into it and try to make it as good as possible while we go forward. It's just a piece of coaching.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah, looks great. Looks very promising.
Cool.
Okay.
Right.
So
also, he might want to do a quick site plan, even though he's.
Oh.
I was just going to say that he might want to do a quick site, just a site analysis, even though he is working with an existing home. I mean, it helps to inform when he's talking about the house, right? Hello? Nobody
Correct.
can hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. No, that was just my 2 cents. All right, Ron, you're next. Ron, are you there?
I'm here. Okay, great. Okay, I've done a few things, and
Your turn.
I'm going to show you what I have, but first of all, I'm working on getting a lot of logistics kind of cleared, just so that I talked to Geo quite a bit after the last class about the particular site. It's very wooded. It's on a lake, and it's very wooded, and not sure we can get any equipment into the site right now. There's an existing home there, and the owner who I'm working with does not, he's a tree hugger, and he really doesn't want to touch, cut down any trees, okay? That's what he'd like. Now, we may have to cut a few, but it has to be really minimum. And there's an existing house there, and we're planning on leveling that and just building a new house. It's a beautiful lot overlooking a lake, and it's just gorgeous. And it's a southern view. What I'm doing.
Did you take pictures?
Okay. I'm in northern New Jersey, and the owner and I are a good friend. We're going up next week to the site, take all kinds of measurement, pictures. We're going to go to the building office with a whole bunch of questions to see, you know, what are we dealing with here? And I do have some of the particulars already from the building instructor. Just there's a zoning code. I got that, and that gave me a lot of information. What's the setback from the lake? I wanted to get really close to the lake, and it's got to be 50 feet. But the lot is particularly densely populated with trees, so that's an issue. So we're trying to meet up with a couple builders, stick builders, because we may go that way, because if we can't get the crane and the trucks and everything else into this location, we're going to have to go with stick build. So I wanted to talk to them, see, you know, if they could even get their equipment in, and if they knew anything about, you know, building modular and getting a crane into this area. So next week that we're going to go up for two partial days and meet with the building person and two builders on site to see what we can learn. I'm really concerned about that. I'd really love to do modular, but the site is, and Gio, I think you'd, you know, second me on this. It's pretty tough to. It looks pretty tough to get anything in there, but we'll see. Well, with that, by the way, if you have any you know, particular questions, I got a lot of them myself, but if there's something you think, you know, you might want to ask, you know, I'd love to hear it. But I've got all the obvious ones, I think. Okay, I can show what I've done.
Can you show us the site? Remember how we did that exercise and stuff? Did you copy that, or?
Let me just see. I think I have that. Yeah, here it is. Okay. This is the lake. This is in, by the way, yeah, I'm in northern New Jersey. This is in the Adirondacks, in Brant Lake, New York. And this is the existing house right here, big road here. And it's set back right now about 50 feet. One of the things we're also going to try to get up there is the real site.
Ron, can you share your screen?
Oh, I thought I did. I'm sorry. Oh, there it is. Okay. Can you see it now? Can you see it now?
Yeah, good.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Right.
So this is the plot.
Right. Hit the step. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry?
Gio?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. It's fine. Go ahead. He's good.
Okay. This is the plot. Why does this thing keep coming back? Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hit the X.
Okay. Again.
No. Hit up. Go ahead.
Okay.
So do not show that. Yeah, that's it. Yep. Good.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. Again, this is the plot. This is. I'll deal with it later.
Just minimize it. Hit the minimization. Yeah. There we go.
Okay. Again. Okay. This is the plot. This is the existing house. the driveway coming in here, and there's an existing detached garage right here.
Do you want to show us the satellite imagery in the lower left-hand corner? Click on that. Yeah.
Yeah, see that. There you go. Better.
This is the house right here.
There we go. Now we're cooking.
And you can kind of get a little sense of the vegetation around the house. And
Just a
there's
few
a
trees.
neighbor here, and the lake here. And I want to get a crane in here in trucks.
Nice.
So you can kind of see why I'm a little concerned here.
Mm-hmm. Panels for you.
What was that?
I think this might be a
Well,
case where the situation calls for panelizing, not using boxes.
Well, I'm just wondering, even panelizing, don't you need to get a crane in there, don't you?
No, you just use a low.
It still needs a crane.
Use a low. You know what a low is?
No. How do you spell it?
It's a brand name. It's like it's one of those lifts, articulated lifts that is sort of like a forklift, but it can go up 2 stories. But it's small. It's not a lot bigger than a forklift. You see them used a lot by painters now who are painting on the second.
I think I know what you mean. So
Yeah.
that could
And they're on rubber tires, and they're you can rent them. I mean, you can rent them from you don't have to.
But wouldn't a tractor trailer have to get in through here somehow?
The low could actually move the panels.
From the street.
Yeah.
Okay, then it's there. Then it's doable.
Yeah.
Doable. Okay.
Yeah.
Would that add a lot of cost to it, or not really?
Well, your instinct was correct at the outset when you said, "I'd like to talk to a bunch of stick builders because we might have to build this as a conventional building." Whether you're building with mods or with panels, you're going to need a traditional builder who's going to be your GC, who takes receipt of the boxes or takes receipt of the panels and puts them together.
Right.
If you have a builder who's familiar with building with panels, they'll say, no problem.
Right.
But if you talk to a conventional builder who's never used panels before, they'll say, oh, that's new. I think that's going to cost more. So the trick is to find a builder that's familiar with either with building with what Gio and I will call dumb panels, just, they're framed panels with the window cutouts, or SIP panels, structural insulated panels, which are those big foam panels, or some variation of those two. These days panels come in a lot of different flavors, and we're going to get into that in another class. But for the purposes of your feasibility study, you should just when you're up there, talk to the builders about their experience with panel construction of any sort.
Right.
That's what you're looking for.
Yes, right. And I want to get an idea of even building conventionally, what do they think of this site as far as even getting their normal trucks in, where they're going to dump off material and that kind of thing. There's just not a lot of room.
It's not a problem though. They should. That's an argument for. Well, first of all, let me back up. Having mostly built in Vermont or in the Northeast, building on this site looks like a cakewalk to me. I mean, this is not a problem.
It is pretty flat. That's the one thing going.
Yeah, I mean, really, this is there's lots of shade. That's great. I mean, it's what more could you want?
Oh,
but you shouldn't find I mean, the fact that there's a lot of trees and that there's neighbors close by, those are real concerns. And so the more work you can do offsite in a factory, the better. So if you can't get mods, then if you can get panels delivered pre-built, that's gonna cut down your construction time, and it's also going to cut down the impact on the site. Don't forget, if you build in a conventional fashion, you're going to have a truck from the lumberyard showing up probably every other day.
Right.
For the building supply store. And they park for a long time, and then they drip oil and gas on your site and kill the plants, and they hit trees on their way in and out and screw up the bark, and they're generally degrade the site, and they come regularly. That's just delivery trucks. Then there's your crew. They come every day, conventional building. They park wherever they have to park. Nobody has a proper parking space, so when it's rainy, they just park wherever they're going to park. Soon you have erosion and mud and further site degradation. I mean, one of the reasons prefab makes so much sense is it puts as much of that mess at a distance from your site and under a roof where it can be done properly. And then it gets brought in 1 or 2 loads and offloaded, and you can really reduce the impact on the ecology of your site.
Yeah, that sounds really, really good, John. This probably, if I have he's got about 100 feet of lakefront and road, so it's if I had a say a 50-foot across here house module or prefab panelized, how much further do you have to kind of clear away so that they can work and put a foundation in? Although it's probably going to be some kind of a simple slab with the lake deck closed. It's not going to be like a basement or anything like that. How much further than the 50 feet do they have to kind of clear away?
Well, it doesn't have to be the same everywhere. I mean, you could, if you were up tight against a boundary or something, you could probably, in a few spots, be as close as whatever the minimum setback is for this, for the boundary. There will be minimum setbacks, but you're going to want 20 feet or more on all sides.
Wow.
And that's, the reason you want that is because you're going to have at the beginning, and there's no way you can prefab. Well, there is a way you can prefab this. Gio's going to get to it later in this class. But typical foundation, you have an excavator comes in and digs. You're going to have some heavy equipment in there just to recycle that building.
Right.
By the way, you should ask around there to see if there's a company that recycles buildings. They take the building down and they recycle the stuff instead of just leveling it. And even if there's not a company like that, when you're talking to your neighbors and the community, you should refer to recycling the house, not leveling it. No,
right. Okay.
little tactic there.
I like that better.
Yeah. So that's going to take some heavy equipment, and then the cleaning of the site, the excavation for the new foundation, that'll take some heavy equipment. Unless you use one of and we're going to come back to this when Gio gets to talking about foundation systems. This might be the sort of place you don't want, a big impact, concrete operation. And you might decide, well, maybe I'll use, insulated forms, which are very light and they can be put in place, and then you can fill them with a pump. And the pump the actual concrete could be up on the road. I think I'm going to leave that to Gio to explain. But the fact that you have a difficult site here, not very difficult, but it's not a subdivision site,
right,
simply means that you have to be smarter about building. But people build on sites like this all the time.
Okay. Great. Okay. How do you
What do you want to show?
I was going to show just the. I think I've shown enough. There's a from the road.
No.
Looking in. How do you turn this?
Yeah. Okay. So take the little orange guy. Take the little orange guy. Hello.
Oh yeah,
take
right.
the little orange guy
Yeah.
on your right. Okay.
Yeah, I got him.
Grab him.
Yeah.
Lift him up. And then.
Don't hurt him.
You got him. Okay. And then bring him right. Don't hurt him. Bring him a little further. Did you drop him? No, you drop. You don't got him. Grab him again.
I dropped him.
There he is.
He's
There's your
not-
site.
Where'd he drop
In the trees.
him? He's lost.
yeah, okay, here's the site here.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, this is looking toward the lake. Now, I need to, yeah.
Where's the get to the driveway?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. It's like right here.
Okay, just click there.
No. Yeah, this is the house is back here. This is the driveway.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going up there. I'm going to take measurements on, you know, what kind of width we have here, but what kind of heights typically do I need to? Because we can do some trimming here, but I just would like to know what kind of.
Well, as a guidance, everything that goes over the highway has to be able to fit under roughly 14 feet because there are bridges everywhere that are 14 feet. I mean, you see the signs all the time, caution, 14 feet.
Okay.
And that's what the prefab factories assume is the highest their transports can go under.
Okay.
If you're doing mods, 14 feet would be a minimum. If you're doing panels that'll come flat, you could get by with less. And I think also Gio mentioned to you, we had a site that was very similar to this that we built on where we tied back the branches.
Yeah. We'll probably do some of that too.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks. Okay. I also did, so that's all I wanted to talk about with the site. We okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We did
Yep.
can you see that? It's the program. We have this really three of us involved here. Jim and his wife Basha, and this house is all about the views from the house to the outside. We want to make that as kind of transparent as possible, that you bring the outside in and the inside out, just kind of all, so the front of the building would be pretty much all glass. And Jim's talisman is a picture of these two trees, great triple oak and a maple tree. And he sent those to me, but I don't know where they are. But they're just beautiful big trees, and it just reminds him of the outdoors, and that's what he wants to be able to just take that in when he's in the house. Okay. And mine is a compass, and again, I'm very much into the outdoors, and that's what I would like as a reminder also, that I use the compass out in nature, and I think I showed it last time, but it's on my desk right here. So that's my talisman. And we went through, I don't know if we want to go through all the detail here, but this was very, we answered all the questions. Who am I? Jim answered it, Basha answered it, and I did too. How we live now. We've got a very, we live in apartments, and we do have a real beautiful long range view. We can, from northern New Jersey, we can see New York City. But
Wow.
very big windows, so it's really very, very beautiful. But there's some problems with it. We'd like to get closer to nature, and this is one nice thing also. It's a southeast solar heating, and it's just beautiful. You get up in the morning, the sun comes up here and it just heats up the house. And with all the trees around, we're probably not going to get quite that, but we really like the sun coming into the house, and we'll be able to have that because it is facing south. How would you like?
Ron, is your water to the south?
Yes.
Yeah, you might have good solar heating and musical bank.
Yeah, I think so. There's going to be some shade, but I think we're going to have enough. Yeah, it's almost directly south.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. How we'd like to live is a view of the mountains, lakes, some nature, in big windows, and have the ability to work from home. We even up in the lake there, we do have internet, so that that kind of allows us to work from home, basically. With Basha, we got a little tiny kitchen now, so she really wants a big kitchen. And a whole bunch of other things. This was very, just going through this exercise was very helpful. What's our budget? Well, we have the existing house and land, but we're going to borrow enough so that the payment on the house is approximately equal to what we pay in rent right now. We think that's doable. So that's my program, which I thought was very, very helpful to go through. Then I did a couple bubble charts. Here, can you see that?
There they are. Okay.
Bring this down here. Yeah, so this is the street, and there's a driveway, and the driveway is a lot longer than that. I just kind of made it out of proportion, but got a garage and garden path. There's the existing garage there. Just something there.
So is this this is the one you showed me, right?
Yes, I haven't done another one. Okay. Yeah, I went over this in a lot of detail. With,
Okay.
So the only thing I'd add to this is, as you're doing more iterations, what you've done is a bubble diagram, but really what you've done is use bubbles to just inventory the rooms. And so I've got a kitchen here, I want an entry, a deck, bedroom,
right.
entry, deck.
But
that's fine. That's good.
I wanted to indicate the approximate locations too, relative locations.
So, but the ones I like, and I think are worth looking at, are ones like work. Now, I know what you really mean is office or something, but
Yeah.
but what it is work. And then next to it, you have social, living,
Right.
dining. Just for fun, try doing a bubble diagram that doesn't use any descriptors that are just word or just room labels. Try them all to be all about human activity,
Okay.
because that can be a huge payoff if you try that.
Okay.
I would also challenge you at this stage, but not to the point where it would slow you down. But, the glass wall is a near knee-jerk response to a great view. Pretty much is what every person does. They say, this is a great view, I want a glass wall.
Right.
We've all been in buildings with great glass walls and great views, but what happens when you live in a building where the whole view is behind glass is the view becomes your wallpaper. In other words, it's always there. Wherever you are, there it is. There's nothing wrong with that, except for as a designer, you're in a position to actually modulate that view and set it up so that it appears and disappears as you move in and about the house, and you present the view, and then you take it away. The thing to remember is when you're close to a window like this,
Right.
it's a picture window and you're going to see all of your view.
Right.
Or if a medium-sized window, when you go forward or back, like a camera, your aperture opens and closes. So there's nothing wrong with a glass wall as long as you're mindful and knowledgeable about what you're doing. But, and again, this is outside the scope of this class, but I'm thinking to myself, well, really what you're trying to do is get everything except for the bedroom and the entry on that glass wall.
Right.
And that's going to mean that everything is the same. So if everything is the same, nothing is special.
Right.
And I think you can give a better and more distinctive character or quality to the rooms if you allow yourself. I know it's hard to even imagine, but deny yourself the view in some places. When I was in architecture school, and I've heard that other students were told this when they were in architecture school, there's a temple in Japan where it's up on a mountain and it has just the most stunning view ever. I mean, it's just a jaw dropper. To get to the temple, you have to, of course, climb the non-view side of the mountain. Then you circumnavigate on this very tightly wooded path into the temple property, and you're on a sort of a courtyard that's surrounded by this huge hedge, so you can't see the view. And it's got this very, classic Japanese garden with the rake stones and whatnot. And then you go diagonally, you go around this thing, but the entry to the temple is diagonally across the longest distance, and you go to the door, and still you haven't seen the view. And then you go through a short but narrow, low-ceilinged hallway. And before you're allowed in the temple, you have to drink from this little fountain. And as you lean down to take a sip from the fountain, there's a window about this big. And when you take the water, all of a sudden, boom, the view is there, as if it were a picture window, because they've positioned your head to this little window in such a fashion that it's the exact same as a picture window. And the impact knocks you back. And I don't expect you to put a Japanese garden and a small picture window in your site, but it demonstrates that when you have an amazing view, don't just paint it on everywhere. Think about how you use it and how you modulate it. Say you're walking along a hallway. Instead of making that whole hallway one glass panel, maybe you make intermittent windows that sort of strobe the view on as you're walking along, and so you see the view, you see the view, you see the view.
Yeah.
Just some thoughts. It's a great thing to have a great view. I would hope you will have a lot of fun designing with it.
Great. Okay. That was, I'm not sure how to implement that, but it's something to think about.
It's for not really about this class. It's just so you have something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bigger than this class.
Yeah. I did a second bubble diagram, but it's basically similar kind of thing. But this is the second floor to this, which I'm not quite sure how to get to, how to make the entryway into the second floor. I'm not quite sure, but again, I'm going into rooms and not human activity, so I'll definitely try that.
Okay.
And I started to do the SketchUp, and I'm new to SketchUp, and I got a pretty steep learning curve. I didn't get any. I couldn't get anything. I mean, I got a few things, but I didn't get the modules yet. So I gotta learn that, and then I gotta start doing the modules. That's gonna take a little time. That's it. That's
okay. That's good.
Okay.
We should keep moving here because we still have some material to present.
okay. Let me
Right.
stop share. Okay, great.
You're done, right?
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead, Grace. Your turn. You're next on my screen.
All right. So I think I'm going to start with my talisman. Let me share my screen here. Can you see it there?
Yes.
Okay. So I have here a stack of design/architecture books because I'm not building a house and this is just about learning. So that's the foundation of the house here. And then I have my great-grandfather's cigarette box that I've put some stuff in, just to nod to having antiques in the home and my ancestry. And then I have an apple and some cilantro I found in my refrigerator, just because in this dream home, it would be cool to plant some apple trees outside, based on the location and stuff. And then just other sorts of having just a small garden. And then the candle to represent a fireplace, and then this copper measuring cup just to represent the importance of the kitchen in the home. So that's what I have here for my talisman.
Nice.
Yeah. So then next, what did I do?
Well done.
I guess I could talk about the plot. Against all of your better judgment, I am doing the plot of land that's across the country. I was able to find quite a bit of information about it from the county records and stuff. So this is the land. If you kind of see where my mouse is here, so I'll show you the specific plot in a second. But this is it's kind of a hockey stick shape almost. So it goes here from the road up and back into the woods here. And this is my grandfather's land. And this plot, or this house here, is actually where my great grandmother lived for a while.
Oh,
And then across the road here was great Uncle Rex and great Uncle Ole's land was across the road. And all of these sections have been sold off. So it's just this one last plot here. And there isn't a house, but there is a trailer that, I mean, it is disgusting and not habitable in any sense. But with the electrical and the water hookup there, we're allowed to build on the land. Otherwise, it's pretty strict development in this valley. So with the county, you can see a ton of different information here. And so I think that with what I'm going to lose by not being able to visit the land, since the house isn't being built, I thought that it makes the project just a little bit more exciting for me. And so I thought, the house isn't getting built anyway, so I'm sure there will be things I overlook, but I don't know, just makes things a little bit more exciting. So with that, I guess the next thing is my bubble diagrams. So here I just did a few. I have 2 butterflies and a bird. And I don't really know. I know that I did this all sort of with specific labeling of the rooms and stuff, which in retrospect, I wonder, I haven't put so much work into the next steps yet that I think it could be worthwhile going back and maybe revisiting why I laid things out this way. But for right now, it is what it is. So then I went into.
Can I say something here about your bubble diagram?
Uh-huh.
So this makes a very good comparison with Ron's, because this is actually an architectural diagram. It's more than a bubble diagram. So you have the butterfly diagram or the bird diagram. The bird diagram I don't think works very well, but the butterfly diagram is and by an architectural diagram, what I mean is it's a familiar organizing configuration. So we all know that a butterfly is a very narrow central body with 2 large wings on either side. And the wings are generally symmetrical, but not identically symmetrical. So what you're sort of saying here to me is, okay, I want the building to be roughly configured around the butterfly sort of organization. This is and it might not have been a butterfly. It might have been it could have been a hot dog or a lollipop, or it could have been any number of geometries that we're familiar with, and they make a really easy sort of reference, like, oh, it's like a lollipop. Everything's at the end of a long stick, or it's a hot dog. The main part of the building is in the middle, but it's supported by two side lesser things. So that's different than a bubble diagram where you're not really thinking about the organization of the actual bricks and mortar. You're thinking about just the organization of the living activity. They're both incredibly useful. I'm just making a distinction between the two because you might think, oh, these are not very good bubble diagrams, and they're not, but you should recognize that they're excellent building diagrams or architectural diagrams. So credit where credit's due.
Right. So here in SketchUp, I got a picture of the land from Google Earth Pro, which I'm not entirely sure what it offers outside of what Google Earth normally does. But so right now, this is, you can see, like, you can hardly see it. This is the trailer that's just sitting in the woods right now. And the driveway goes up to it right here. But yeah, so it's all quite close to the road. The trees are really pretty thick the further back you go and up the hill. So, so I didn't really like playing with the bubble diagram so much on SketchUp just because, I don't know. So I didn't spend too much time with this. But I kind of got my bubbles down, and then I really jumped the gun and just started building on top of them instead of doing a floor plan. So, I mean, you can see what I put here, but like I said, I haven't spent too much time on this, so I think that I might think about going back and
look at that butterfly.
Yeah.
Seriously, it works.
Yeah. Oh, I think I didn't do forgive me, I forgot to do the site analysis. So here I did some of them. The sun path, I know we talked about it last week, but then I still was having a little bit of trouble with it. And I think that that's going to be, once I figure that out, then I'll be able to do more with regard to considering the positioning of the house and stuff. But so the neighbors, if you back in the Google Maps, you could see that there was a house pretty close by, and they have some chickens and stuff, so some noise things to keep in mind. But otherwise, like I said, it's really pretty thick with trees coming back. The elevation just goes up and up as you go further back down this shape. There are the sizes, views to the site, some views through the trees from those neighbors and then from the road, and then kind of the same thing from the site. Well, I guess looking back here, it's just forested. So that's what I was able to come up with for the site analysis, for some of it at least.
Cool.
So I think that what I'm going to do at this point is probably take a step back and do the floor plan properly, and maybe think about the bubble diagram a little bit more before I do that floor plan. But I've been, yeah, like I said, I was definitely pretty excited when I figured out I could find out as much about the property as I could online. So we'll see. I don't know.
That's cool.
It's great. I think
that's good.
I think that's a solid week's worth there. Really good, and your instincts seem correct in that you shot forward where your excitement took you, realizing and sort of ignoring the fact that you were leaving some things off.
Yeah. But
you followed your excitement. Now you're saying, okay, I'm gonna back up and sort of collect the things that got overlooked.
Yeah.
It's great. That's what design is. It's cyclical. You go really quickly to the point as far as you can, and you say, hey, this could be it. And then you look at it and say, oh no, there's all these things that are wrong, and do it again. But you can't really learn unless you put the thing out there, the incomplete, sort of compromised first idea. That's how you learn. You're going to get a lot from that. I particularly want to say how I don't know if you were consciously doing it, but the way you organize your rooms around the butterfly configuration can help a lot in making strong architecture, because these diagrams that we find in nature, like a butterfly, or that old archetypical, very profound thing that we all find in nature, a lollipop. No, I don't get that. But I mean, some of these things, the organization just rings to us. So if you make a building that's organized around something like that, it has a quality to it that's more than just a bunch of drums with a roof on it. So good. Thanks for demonstrating that to the whole class. That's great. Okay.
Yeah. The only last thing was I called a couple of prefab builders to see if I could go in and visit, and somebody in Rhode Island told me, they said, oh, they only build those in Pennsylvania. And I was like, oh. Anyways, so I need to figure out where there's an actual factory nearby. A lot of people offered me tours of a model home, but I don't know how beneficial that would be.
That would not be beneficial. But if you can send Gio and me the names of the ones that said, oh, they only do that in Rhode Island, we'll make a phone call to just put it in the list. I won't divulge your name. I'll just say, we're doing work in Colorado. We're used to cold calling these factories. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Good work though for getting out there and testing the waters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well done. Well done. All right. Joseph, you're up.
Well, I'm really impressed with all the work everyone's
Joseph?
done. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, very well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm embarrassed how far behind I am, but you guys have really given me a lot of ideas, and I think those work weeks I'm going to have to do a lot of catching up. Well, my talisman, back when I was in high school, I went golfing a couple of times. I really enjoyed it. So a couple of years later, I was at a garage sale and I bought a set of clubs, and I took them home and I went and showed them to my girlfriend, and she laughed at me or laughed at my golf clubs, as well as did her family and my friends and my roommate. And we lived in Alaska, and everybody up there hunts and fishes, and nobody plays golf. And so I was golf shamed. So I took the clubs out to the curb and put a free sign on them. And so a few years ago, I remembered that was something that I wanted to do, and that I thought I would find it enjoyable. So I went out to a golf course and I walked around the course, and I really liked it. And I thought, this is, very peaceful and refreshing out here. So I took up the sport, and some of the things I like about it is it's very simple looking at it from, high level. But when you really drill down, it's very complex, and there's a lot of little things about it that you don't realize are there. And some of the things that I like about it is I think it's disciplined. You've got to show respect to the sport, to the rules, to the other players, to the course, to the land. And you've got to be imaginative sometimes. You've got to be resourceful. And so I really like it, and I wanted to do it, and I'm glad I did, and I've enjoyed it. And something else I wanted to do was to build a home. And so now that is one of the goals I've set for myself, and I want to do that. And the talisman I have, my children gave me a few years ago, a golf ball, and it's got my name on it. And so I'll be hanging on to that, and I'll be thinking about what it is about the sport that I like, and what it is that how I think it ties into this. As far as the rest of the stuff,
Cool.
I don't even have a copy of SketchUp yet, and I think Carol recommended SketchUp Pro, and I should talk to someone in the office about getting it.
Carol, you're muted.
Well, not the school office.
Is it Chrissy?
Go ahead, Carol.
Is it Chrissy that's in the front office?
Yeah.
Chrissy?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what,
Or she's usually the one
Right.
that answers the phone. And tell her you need a letter, an educational letter. Then you just go online and order SketchUp Pro, and they'll
Right.
send you an email saying, fax us or email us or scan your educational letter, and then you do that, and then a couple days later, there it is, ready to download for $50 or 40.
thank you.
Right.
Carol, I missed the children in the background.
Yeah, $50.
I'm not at my daughter's anymore. I'm finally home. Oh, so glad to be home.
And that's where I'm at.
Well, Joseph, definitely do what Carol said with regard to calling up Chrissy at the main office, but you can download a perfectly serviceable free copy of SketchUp. You sort of have to be perseverant, but they still do offer it. And it's not that different.
And it looks like you folks have put a lot of time into this, and I've just been wicked busy lately, and I know it's an excuse, and I just need to show some discipline. But your ideas, I think, really have given me some ideas, and I see how, like John said, just put it together, get something started, and go from there.
Yeah. And when your friends say, "Hey, Joseph, we're all going, out to have this great time," you say, "Hey, I have a date with SketchUp." Just
all right.
lay it down. Just lay it down. They'll respect you for it. That's SketchUp date.
Thank you.
Well, cool.
That's I'll tell you.
Well, good. Well, hey, that.
Joe.
Yeah.
On to foundations.
That's a lot of work. Yeah. Well, you guys have any questions based on the reading we sent about foundations?
No, I was saying on to geo and foundations. No, I didn't have any questions about them. No.
On to geo foundations. Okay. Well. Okay. How about Ron, Grace, Carol?
This was something that I didn't really know a lot about, but I wonder, what do you two often find yourselves leaning towards in terms of the different options and their pros and cons when you're building?
Right. Gee, I don't know. I usually, I find myself leaning towards the insulated forms. I find that you can do quite a few things with them. And then the other ones that my second choice would be the superior, the precast ones. They seem actually quite interesting. And the interesting about both these systems is that you could not only use them for foundation, but you can carry them through to the second floor or to the first floor, main floor, and second floor if you wanted to. Okay, and there is a insulated form provider who has taken it all the way to the roof, and I believe their name is Quad Wall, QUAD Wall, WALL. If you look them up, they've made it so that if you want to build your house a complete concrete home, you can do that. I mean, the interior walls would be steel stud or wood, traditional wood, but usually I find ICFs are the way to go. And we've had in Toronto, when they first started coming out, the three top forming companies in the span of like about 3 to 5 years completely went from the traditional wood form to using ICF solely for their residential work. So,
Gio, you should explain. Does everybody know what an ICF is? I mean, it was in the reading, but I don't know.
Does everybody understand what? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, just a quick clarification. So, the ICFs look like the company build blocks, these kind of foam shells, and then I think the concrete goes inside. Is that right?
Yes.
Got a question about those. What about the outside?
Correct.
How does the outside get? I mean, it just gets sprayed with whatever, some tarmac or something.
No. So you got to really be careful. You have to really be careful with those because, can you hear me? You have to really be careful with those because if you spray them with any type of petroleum-based product, it'll melt away your foam.
So what? I wasn't clear what the outside.
Don't ask me how I know this.
Foam. So I wasn't clear what the outside. How do you layer the outside of those kind of blocks in the?
So here, let me. How do you lay them out? How you lay them down?
No,
the ICF. I like the. They're actually.
Once you build the walls with the ICFs and you pour the concrete inside, what do you do with the outer layer to strengthen them, and how do you attach other things onto it? That part wasn't clear.
So the way, I mean, they come in a lot of different shapes, but what they all have in common is there is in the interior where the concrete is, there's a connector. Usually it's a plastic connector that, so when they fill up, the sides don't blow apart. They're the ties. And those are on regular intervals, and they go all the way through to the outside of the foam, so they become a very specific and predictable nailing point. So you can nail sheet on the inside. You can actually attach sheetrock or whatever you want by fastening at those layers and those zones. And on the outside, what you would put on is any number of different impervious sheet goods that would not only protect the foam, but also allow you to then put a waterproofing membrane over that.
Oh, I see. So that's just the interior layer. Then you would attach sheetrock or other things onto it, drilling through the foam into the concrete.
Actually, not even the concrete. These plastic ties provide you something a little bit easier than the concrete to attach to that is usually more than adequate. I mean, they have significant pull-out strength so that you can attach the stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the superior walls just stood out in terms of precision and the way they were manufactured. It just looked very robust. And the fact that it seemed to be usable for multiple, not just for foundation, but for the rest of the structure. Very keen to explore that further, and also how much it costs more. But yeah, it looked great. All of the videos had the tagline, it's more efficient, quicker, whatnot. But I mean, you know, they were so laborious and manual, like with all these different ties and processes. But you know, it looked like the ICFs and the superior walls seemed by far the most efficient, at least. I don't know, from a cost perspective, there's a premium attached, I'm sure.
So actually, you all had asked us to give you some sense of cost. The superior wall is definitely a Cadillac. You save a lot of time. They come in, I mean, the work you do is reduced to just grading the site and putting down a bed of stone and compacting it to a specified compression. And then they come in, they check your work, and they do everything else. It's just incredible. And it's waterproof because they use high strength concrete. It's waterproof concrete as it's set. You can get it with foam, or you can foam it afterwards. You can have openings in it for windows and doors. It's really a wonderful. I built with it, and I was as impressed as you are, Andalee. But it's not the cheapest. It's probably the most expensive. And then I guess, you know, and Gio, you could push back on this. I'm thinking that probably for just cheapest bottom line, you're still not going to beat the poured in place classic footer with a stem wall. But there's a lot of stuff you have to do to make up for that. And then in between, you have the ICFs, which are, you know, when you think that you're getting the insulation inside and out as well as your structure, you're getting more than just a concrete foundation. And the thing about the ICF is it's very flexible. So if your house has lots of articulations and you want to go in and out and stuff, the ICF is a very flexible system. So is the superior wall, but it's not as flexible, and there's a lot of engineering involved in smaller panels and special fittings and stuff. The ICFs are very flexible when you think about it. And the concrete, poured in place concrete, that's also very flexible, but there's a lot of labor involved in putting up those forms. I think Gio's comment about how the larger concrete companies went so quickly to ICFs, it's because instead of arriving with trucks with big forms and all sorts of steel, and you have a pickup truck with a bunch of foam Legos that snap together. So it's very, very light. You know, there's stuff, I don't want to make it seem trivial. You have to support it in strong backs and make sure it's true. And you have to be very careful that when they pump it, they don't throw it out of, it's almost delicate compared to the other approaches. But if you take the care to put it in and craft it properly, it'd be a great choice for you, Ron, because you could insinuate it into that site with a minimum kind of damage to the site.
And is it in between the price points between the superior walls and the ground up way of doing it?
I would say, what do you think, Gio? I would say it is. He's falling asleep on us. I can't hear you.
You're on mute.
You're muted. Now you're not muted.
Who muted me? Anyway, no, not muted. There's a 10 to about, not exactly 15, but let's say 10 to 12% difference between your traditional poured in place concrete and the ICF. Not that much. And what you got to look at is that, as John was saying, you get more than just a poured concrete wall. You get insulation on both sides, which now, because of the way it's been engineered, it's well put together, and it's assembled in a way that, as John was saying, there are webs. I don't know. I think you saw that in the reading. The block has these webs throughout it, and the webs are spaced every 8 inches. And the reason that they're spaced every 8 inches is because whenever you put up a sheet of anything, it's 4 by 8. So now if you space it every 8 inches, now it's easier for the person who's putting up the drywall on the inside or who's putting anything else on the outside. He knows the spacing. And it's really interesting if you take a hammer and you turn it sideways, it'll go between two of this. Yeah. And you turn it sideways from the tip of the east wing. Perfect. If you turn it sideways, turn it sideways. Turn the hammer sideways. Turn the hammer sideways. That's right. So if you go from the middle, that way, like that. If you go from the middle of the hammer where it turns from rubber into steel to the end of the hammer, that's about 8 inches. So that when you're putting up material on this stuff and you're using a hammer, or in most of the cases, what they started using is a drill gun. Okay, it's about 8 inches, right? Give or take.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly 8 inches. There you go. Give or take.
God, I am such a good teaching assistant.
There you go. You're good. You're good. So what ends up happening? It makes it easy when you're putting stuff up. But they stopped using hammers on this thing because I mean, you can still nail into it, but it's much easier to screw into it. So what you use a drill gun. So now you've got, so here's, you look at it this way. It's giving you three things. It's giving you a wall, a concrete wall. The concrete wall, concrete takes 28 days for it to cure. If you do it traditionally, you're going to get a forming guys coming in there, putting up their forms. The day they put up the forms, if you're lucky, they'll pour the concrete. If you're unlucky, they come back the next day and take the forms down. If you're lucky, they'll keep the forms there for at least 3 days, which still isn't enough. But at least in 3 days' time, the concrete can more or less set. And there's been, and from my experience and from what I've seen firsthand, when they come to take off the forms and they take them out the next day after they've poured it, the bottom of the wall has this little kind of like little, it's kind of, how can I describe it? It looks like it's melting because it's not completely set. So what ends up happening is that you get your wall is compromised. Whereas now with the forms, they don't have to be taken off. As John said, a guy comes in a pickup, delivers them. They're light, they're easy to handle. They've been described as Lego for adults. You get insulation, you get a form which is in place, doesn't get taken down. Your concrete is allowed to cure, and it's easy to adhere the remainder of the material that you want to build with to it. So whether you're using it in the basement or whether you're using it as a main floor or second floor exterior structure, it works. And oh, by the way, not only that, it has a tremendous sound proofing quality. So, when you're in one of these kind of houses, you cannot hear the outside. So,
yeah, I mean, the other thing that was interesting.
For 10% more, 10 to 12, not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, obviously cost is a consideration when you put it all together, but if you can afford it, it sounds like a no-brainer. The other thing was interesting is looking at the process for the ground up manual way. I mean, as with any construction, you're at the mercy of the workmen and the quality that they bring. Actually it's all artisan work, and there's so much room for error in all of these processes that if I didn't have a full-time job, I would be hovering over them saying, that beam's a little warped, and that nail looks crooked, that this and that doesn't look straight, and even the interior renovation work that I've been involved in, constantly on top of everyone, redoing stuff, things aren't level. So from that perspective, I really like the fact that it's all fabricated in a factory setting with controlled environment, and everything's much more precise and well engineered. But I mean, obviously there's a cost for all of that.
Well, yeah, there's a cost to everything, but I mean, what you're looking at is, if you're looking at something that's quick and fast, Superior Wall is pretty quick and fast. I mean, it's pre-built, and then they just bring it on site and they just set it.
I agree. I mean, these are long-term investments, right? I mean, if you want to build something for a long time and not just for 30 to 50 year span, I think you need to look at it from that horizon as well. I'm assuming the other thing, I guess that brings up the question. I mean, even if you're around for 30 years, so what's the projected longevity of these? Any less or more, or any projections to how long we can expect these things to last?
Yeah, the Superior Wall will last forever. That because they're using 6,000 psi mix in there, and it's waterproof, and concrete gets harder as time goes on. Believe it or not, the concrete that the Romans used for their aqueducts is still getting harder, but the concrete that they pour in place on your site the traditional way. When they strip it, it's called green. And for the first 28 days, it's so soft compared to old concrete that you can chip at it, you can cut it with a saw. It's really quite pliable. But as concrete goes on, it gets harder and harder, and the concrete in older buildings is more and more sort of durable as time goes on. But there's some other things that are interesting about concrete. One is that an engineer recently told me, he said, what 80% of the strength of a conventional concrete foundation is used for? And I said, what do you mean? What is 80% of the strength used for? He says, well, 20% of the foundation holds up the house above it. The other 80% holds up the foundation itself, because that's how overbuilt it is. It's just holding itself up. So a superior wall, if you look at it, is very narrow. It's inches thick, not 8 inches or 10 or 12. It's inches thick because it's engineered. It has ribs. It uses more than it needs, but it uses way less than a conventional approach. But they overpour the conventional poured in place ones because of exactly that question. How's it going to last? How durable will it be? Well, given the number of ways you can mess up, let's just overpour it, make it over thick, and that way, where there's a mistake here, it'll be compensated for over there. So the more engineered solutions tend to be more efficient and more they're just well thought out. And
I have a question about so most houses typically here tend to have basements and whatnot. But if you don't want a basement or building from scratch on a plot of land, is there a requirement from an engineering standpoint to go certain feet depth for the house to be stable, or can you have that? Can you just put a superior wall construction, which, by the way, didn't look like it had any footing, which was interesting,
doesn't,
and just put it on the land?
Well, you can do that if there's no frost, but in most parts of the country, above the Mason-Dixon line, I don't know where the frost ceases to figure in the building codes, but when it starts to become trivial, then the building codes still say foundation must go down to below frost. But that's why they go into the ground, is to deal with freezing and heaving, because if there's only one thing really that can beat concrete, and that's water. Water will beat it every time, frozen water. So the superior wall is precast, but it sits on a compacted bed of gravel, so that if there's any water, it's drained away.
But how deep does it need to be? Is there a requirement that it has to be certain feet below?
No, it depends on where you're building. So in Vermont, you've got to go down at least 4 feet just to be safe. You don't have to have a 4 foot. You don't have to have a slab down there. You could have a 4 foot wall and then put the slab at the top, or you can go down 8 feet and put the slab at the bottom, and you get a basement. In places like Georgia or the Carolinas, or down in the Sun Belt, you just have to go down really a trivial amount, a foot, and that's really to keep rodents out. So it is cheap space, though. I often tell my clients that if you're in the snow belt, and you should all look at your local code, it'll tell you how deep you have to go. But if you have to go down, say, 4 feet anyway to be below frost, that means your excavator is going to come in. He's going to dig a hole that's 4 feet deep, and it's going to be bigger than that because he has to provide enough room for people to work down there. So it'll be quite a bit wider than your actual footprint. But you're down 4 feet. Now, for an excavator to go down another 4 feet, It doesn't take that much time. They do it. It's not like it takes twice as much time. They get it done pretty quickly, and you're paying for the transport of it either way. So if you go that extra 4 feet for the cost of the extra concrete and not much, the extra excavation, now you have livable space. Granted, it's not no wall of glass, no great view, it's not the best living space, but these days when we build it with ICFs or even a properly insulated concrete form, it's dry, it's insulated, it's warm, it's usable space. And there are ways of getting sunlight down into it, lots of clever ways of getting sunlight down to it. So it's cheap space per square foot. I'm not saying, it's the same as a living room, but it's cheap space.
John, is there a possibility, you saw how close the lake is to that building. Is there a possibility that you could build a basement, in a home that close to the water?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah. You should ask your neighbors if any of them have them.
Yeah, we will. We will. When we go up there, we'll do that.
Especially at new house.
Right.
Do you know what kind of soils you have there?
Yeah, it's kind of it looks pretty sandy.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What clay would not
Are there any other questions in regards to foundations?
I have a question.
Carol?
Yes, on the foundation systems, the video, do y'all have any experience with the one that had a connected drain with it? I thought that might be less expensive than building a drain all the way around it if the system already has a drain.
It was called strip form?
I don't remember the name. That sounds like it might be it.
With the slots in it?
Yes, the slots. So does
It's funny because Gio and I were talking about that a few days ago. And I said, Gio, I'm just looking over our class material and I'm having a problem with this one. And, Gio has actually been pouring, shipping, or organizing concrete since I believe, 14? How old were you when you were first concrete dispatch in Toronto? Gio?
13.
Yeah.
13.
So
I was 13.
He's poured a lot of concrete in his day. I've poured probably about 1/10 as much. And so we looked at that strip thing and we said, well, gee, that is clever. There's no question that would make it much easier to put up your footing forms because nobody likes stripping those forms. It's a pain because they're staked into the ground and the concrete's usually poured over the top. So you have to chisel off the concrete and pull them. It's annoying. So to be able to actually have those in there, no question, that would be great. Just leave them there. They become the thing is, they're not pitched. They're not tilted in any direction. So they just rely on the water getting high enough to go out that side pipe. And that would probably be more than adequate in certain soils. I would think that would be fine. And, we both looked up the reviews and we looked up, testimonials. There's no bad press on those. It appears to be a pretty good product. It's a little counterintuitive for the old guard, but I think, if the Journal of Light Construction and the Green Building Advisor both say yes, that's a pretty good indication. But I've never used it.
But in general, you do want a perimeter drain around the foundation?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I still don't understand how that works without the footings. Is it just so heavy or solid or something that it doesn't need a footing?
Which?
Whichever foundations didn't need a footing, whichever these systems.
Oh, the superior wall?
Yeah, I think superior wall is one of them.
So the superior wall does have, it's even though the wall is only a couple of inches thick, at the bottom it's I think 8 or 12 inches thick. So it has a good base. And then you compact a bed of gravel And now that'll do. And don't forget also the way that system works is it bolts together at the corners. So it's sort of like cheating in building a house of cards. House of cards, you have to always balance everything. But imagine if you were building a house of cards and you could just tape the cards together. That's what these guys do. So the strength becomes, it's not just the cast panels, but the fact that they're bolted and actually epoxied at the corners makes it, when you have a box or a closed shape, they're incredibly strong. So even if there was a settlement at one point along the run of wall, the neighboring walls just hold it up and it would bridge over that settlement. Not that should happen, but
Okay.
worst case. Yeah.
That brings me actually to another question. As you know, I'm in Texas. I'm near the coast. Hurricanes are just a fact of life. So houses that are built where there's going to be flooding, I mean, from the ocean, have to have like breakaway walls or things. In other words, the idea was the water rises, it can compress on the foundation. Is that a real thing, or is that just the storm surge? Or if you just have rising water, would it be a problem?
You wouldn't want a superior wall foundation for that situation because it wouldn't break away. It would be strong to a point, and then it would have a catastrophic failure.
So that is a lot of pressure. If there were water all the way around, that would be a lot of pressure. Okay.
Yeah, and if the water were surging, I mean, if it rose really evenly, the superior wall could handle that. You could build a superior wall foundation in the middle of a pond or lake and pump out the water and it would stay fine. But with a storm surge,
that's different.
Yeah, you want that force to go right on by. So you would use a pier foundation with a lot of cross bracing, and then you would put, paneling in there that could blow out and your house would be safe, but you'd lose those walls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you just speaking of Texas and hurricane zones? Is your soil very sandy?
No, where I am is mostly limestone base.
Oh, great. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I was shocked when I came to Cape Cod because the first foundation I saw poured, I said, where's the footing drain? Where's the foundation drain? They said, we don't use them. And I said, you have to use them. It's code. They said, no, this is a spit of sand. There's no place we could ever run the footing drain to daylight. It's, it would have to go to Pennsylvania. So they just, they're building on it, and so Ron, if your lakefront property is very sandy, that's good, unless the bottom of your foundation, the basement that you're contemplating, if that's below the lake's mean water level, and that would be a challenge. Not impossible, but that would be a challenge. Yeah.
So question related to that, can the superior wall approach is it applicable to a flood zone? If you're in a flood zone, say by the beach area, that probably wouldn't work, right?
I wouldn't advise it.
Yeah.
No. In fact, this is outside the scope of this class. I don't advise building in flood zones. Run away, run away.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Although it's good for us architects and builders. It's sort of guaranteed employment.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the houses in the beach in our town, they were completely flooded during Sandy, and they had to be raised. A lot of them, when you renovate, by law they have to be raised.
Right. No, it's tough.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Cool. All right. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Oh, good. Oh, I don't know if this is good or bad.
But I'm always worried about the quality of our course. And so Carol, Grace, and Ron, and Annalebe have excellent transmission. Joseph, you have a little bit of lag, but not not as bad as the first day. It's gotten much better. Gio, your transmission sometimes lags so far behind you that I think you're asleep, because you don't move. And I'm just wondering, is that on my end, or do other people see the same kinds of variation in transmission?
I'm getting the same here. I guess I'm also.
Well, I've been.
I can't hear you now.
I've been witnessing the same thing all night with everybody. Yeah, you see.
So, so that must be your.
I have been witnessing the same thing with everybody.
Yeah, same. I think it looks like Joe's connection is probably problematic. He's the only one who's freezing on my screen.
Yeah. All right. Okay. That was just a survey, impromptu survey, but I like it now because, Gio, you don't know this, but your face is frozen with a beautiful smile on it. It looks really great. This could be a yearbook.
All right. Oh my God.
Is anybody else using their phone,
cool.
or are they all using their mic?
I'm using. I'm using mic. Yeah.
I'm on my phone.
Computer mic.
You want to try going to your computer? Do you have a computer mic, Joseph?
No.
Well, then I think you should use your phone.
Okay.
Works for me. You're actually come through loud and clear. Very, very loud and clear. Good.
Yeah, he is.
All right. So what do we got for next week?
All right, this is good. Next week, I will be sending out the reading this evening after we're done. And we're dealing with, what are we dealing with? Does anybody know what we're dealing with? Oh, next week is modular delivery with a twist. We have a guest speaker coming in. So, yes, so we should be good on that. Yeah, and I think that the
so
who's the guest speaker?
Gio, are you going to?
Who is the guest speaker?
Sorry?
Who's the guest speaker?
Mac Rood is a architect and builder who has been making buildings, since the 70s. And he's made everything from farmhouses to next month, I think he's going to Switzerland to put up a huge prefab space structure, space frame that gets moved around from place to place for these big conventions like the International Finance Summit. What is that thing called? In any event, he puts it up. Sorry?
Davos.
Yes, Davos. Exactly that. So he has lots of different experiences. When he went to build his own house, he looked into different prefab options in the central Vermont area. Didn't find anything that was suitable, so concluded the only thing to do would be to start his own prefab company and use his house as a prototype. I wish you all could visit his house because it's this wonderful lyrical thing that has, because of his travels, an onion dome on one. So think about a Vermont farmhouse with a Russian onion dome on it. It's really great. But he knows a lot about prefab, a lot about design and construction at different scales, and has been teaching at Yestermorrow since the very first day it opened. Not exclusively, but he's been with us since then. And continues to work with the school at all levels. Really great guy. What'd I leave out, Gio?
No, that's it. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Sorry, can I ask a final question? I should have asked earlier. When we're thinking about these prefab or whether it's modular or these prefabricated walls, I mean, when I look at my site plan, we live in a cul-de-sac, but I'm on the first house, so I'm on the side of the road. I have the road on one side. Actually, let me just show you. I don't know where it's gone. Yeah. Now I have too many screens open, so I'm not sure if I can show
There you go.
Hang on one second. There we go.
Perfect.
Okay. So it's here, right? This is my house. This is a road. Not a huge road. This is my street, and there are a lot of so there's a stone wall here with not a very wide opening, and then there are overhead, cables, electricity and cables going across. So, is that problematic for leveraging any of these techniques?
Can you zoom in a little closer to that intersection? Yeah, that's good.
So there's a stone wall which ends on either side.
How big is the opening in the stone wall?
I can't remember exactly. Maybe 12 feet. I'll measure it next time. But yeah.
I'll tell you what they do, Andalib, is you can actually get, if not from the manufacturer, when we have a tight site like that, what we do is we actually.
Oh, it's right here.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that could. That's going to be a problem. They can get through that.
Going across.
They can get through it, no question, but there's not enough room on the other side of the road, is there? Can you go 180? That's good. Yeah, keep going 180. Yeah, that's the problem. What they would do, they might come from this direction, the direction you're showing us now, and they would take their tractor trailer up a little bit on the grass on the far side there to try to make the turn. So you'd have to be friends with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd leave the road. But the reality is that's going to be what's that thing right there that's sticking out of the ground?
It's a road sign which has been knocked. It looks, must have been taken a while ago because it now looks like that because various vehicles have hit it, and this one's on the floor right now.
Yeah. That's
So my question is, do they have a mechanism where the tractor trailer can stay here and then they have a smaller vehicle transporting the walls into here?
Oh, for walls? Yeah. I mean, if it's a panelized, you have no problem with that.
Yeah, I was thinking of panelized. I don't think mod will work.
Yeah.
And finally, and I asked this last week as well. I mean, would it work? And what I'm thinking of doing, again, I haven't decided whether to knock it down and build. It really depends on finances, or just build on top and modify this. Could I use superior wall technology to add to the top, or is that not the best option here?
No, I don't think you could. You mean put the superior system on top of the wood system?
Yeah.
No, that won't work.
So what's the option?
I don't think it can do it.
Can I use ICF? So that wouldn't work either. I mean, what's the best way to add to an existing house?
No.
Wood panels or SIP panels.
Okay, SIP panels. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily give up on mods for that turn. What I would do is I would get somebody from the local factory to come out and they'll do it. You just say, hey, I'm thinking of building a prefab house, but I'm not sure you can get in my driveway. Can you come look at it? They'll send somebody out.
But SIPs for superior walls,
the other thing he could.
Okay, I mean, you don't have to go right on site. Can I use that technology for a ground up development?
Oh yes. Absolutely.
Because, okay, let me show you something else,
Yeah.
if it's okay. Um, one second.
I was going to say that the other thing that could be done, I mean, that wall is dry laid, so he could, dismantle those ends and then kind of put it back together again, couldn't he?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a dry laid wall, so it could be taken down and put back up.
Put back up. I know it's a pain, but.
You like to generally avoid taking down stone walls and putting them back up.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun. Come on.
You're Italian. Of course, for you. It'd be easy for you.
That's right.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find another site. I'll show
What are you
you.
looking for?
I was looking. Can you see my screen? No, I wasn't sharing it.
No. We need your screen.
Yeah, no,
You
no.
have to share it. What is that you're looking for? What is that?
Yeah, there's another site which I'm contemplating where the access is very tricky. It's right at the end of a cul-de-sac where, again, similar narrow entry to the final point and then overhead, sharp turn. I mean, the whole works. So again, trying to figure out if these are, prohibiting factors to considering any of these.
What?
Do you have the address?
Yeah, I'm looking at, yeah.
I believe. Do you have the address that you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Unfortunately, if I type in the address, it's not showing up. It's 24 Timber Lane. Let me see another option. Oh, hang on, I have another idea.
What state?
Oh, it's Connecticut, Westport, 06880. Okay, let me show you another view here. Okay, I'll share my screen. I'll share my screen and then show you on the city map. Okay, one sec. Okay. It's where is it? Okay, it's right here. Okay. Can you see? Can you see?
Nope.
Oh, you can't see my screen?
All we see is your SketchUp.
Oh.
You got to go to share screen and select the screen that this is left over from before.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So you hit share screen and it gives you options.
Strange thing is I don't see all the options. Okay, hang on.
There we go.
Can you see?
Yep, there we go.
Okay, okay. So here's the thing. So this is the property, right? This is the property.
Right.
And this is right at the end of a cul-de-sac. And this is the road. This is a really narrow road with an overhead cables and a little turn here with a narrow, again, stone walls on each side. And this is the end of a cul-de-sac. This is the road that's going across to the main road here. So you've got you can just, you can get the trailer into here along the road. And then at the end, there's another little section of this road, which is very narrow and goes all along here.
Well, once you get past that little turnaround and through that turn, this looks like a cakewalk. The only thing is, if you have low cables, as long as they're not lower than 14 feet, they'll get by. And they're very clever about this. But I'm glad you're taking it seriously. They're very clever about these kinds of dead-end sites. What they do is they will bring the crane in first.
Yeah.
And they'll set up the crane where it can pick off the transports and without moving, put the mods or the building parts right on the building. Then, since there's no room to turn around, what they do is the crane picks up the back of the transport that's now empty.
Yeah.
Now you have this little tractor rig that can turn around. It turns around, and then they put the back part down again, and away he goes. So it's very clever. It's like kids playing with toys.
Okay, so the tractor would end here, and then you'd have another vehicle taking the walls down, or the crane. Well, the crane would have to be located at the site.
Right.
But you'd have a smaller vehicle offloading from the tractor and moving it down.
No, I think you have to get the whole distance.
No.
You think the tractor could turn around here?
I don't know. It's hard to tell from that drawing. They're miracle workers, but without seeing the actual site, maybe for next time you can locate that on Google Earth.
I will. For some reason, it's not very precise, so I have to do a bit of digging to find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, folks.
All right. Cool. You're welcome. All right. So.
We're good?
All right. So same bad time. Yeah. Same bad time, same bad channel for next week for everybody. I'll send out the reading tonight and an invite for the next class. Go have a bottle of wine or something.
And who was it? Grace, you should send me the name of those manufacturers that
I'll look back at the notes I took. I think some of them I just kind of crossed off my list, and I'm not sure which one.
Okay, if you have them. If you don't, no problem.
Okay.
Very good. All right, folks. Another great class.
All right. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Have a good night, guys.
Yeah, have a good night.
Hey, John.
Yeah. Okay, so now.
Am I lagging behind now? I see two O's.
Are you 0777?
No, I don't know what I am here.
Okay, somebody's lurking.
0777. No. There we go.
Somebody was lurking.
Someone was lurking. All right.
So,
well, this is good. I can turn off the record.
So